couple of queen related questions here that I think can be answered fairly quickly. And I know you've done a lot of videos really based around this particular question here by Peter Gunn. It says, Bob, you said you requeen every year. What time of year and what method do you use?
We can't requeen all our colonies at the same time. We have a book where we keep track of what we did in a certain yard. We start requeening right off the bat in early spring, and we're still requeening into July. We just pick a yard that needs to be requeened, and we might do several this week and several the next week and several the next week. This summer we had around 40 bee yards, and it took us a long time to get them all
Gosh.
requeened. And that's okay. We just keep
Yeah.
track of them. And if they swarm, that's a new queen. If they supersede, that's a new queen. So we mark that on the lid and we keep track of that too. And as long as if I've got a date from this current year on the lid in any way, shape, or form that has to do with a queen or a cell or whatever, I'm satisfied. That's a new queen, and we let that be. So what method do we use? We do it the simple way quite often: kill the queen and put a caged queen in there. We use the JZBZ queens when we're collecting queens out of our queen mating nukes, but we do one little trick that's very simple and it's very helpful, and that is that we put a piece of cheap masking tape over the candy and put just the prick of like a frame nail, put a little teensy hole in that masking tape, and it takes them an extra 2 days to get through the masking tape. A lot of people think that it can take 3 or 4 days for the bees to get through that candy, and in some cases they get through it really fast.
Yeah, they
That's
can.
part of the problem. If they release the queen too fast, you get poor acceptance. And the other thing to understand the concept of is that gorged bees accept queens much better than hungry bees. So whether it's a nectar flow or whether you're gorging them with feed or whatever, or if you can feed in such a way that you're not causing a robbing problem, you'll have a lot better acceptance. And
Wow.
we use that tool a lot. Like I remember, this really got driven home once about 20 years ago. I had some bees down in South Georgia that I had to requeen a bunch of. They had the 1.5 gallon feeders, which y'all are familiar with, in the colonies. I filled them, gorged the bees, came back 2 days later, killed the queen, put a caged queen in there, and filled the feeders again. So they got 3 gallons in 4 or 5 days. They were absolutely gorged. It was just like it was a honey flow. I got like 100% acceptance.
Yeah.
And I did it in such a way that they were not robbing. There was no robbing. Robbing is, if you want to get bad queen acceptance, the best way to do it is start a robbing frenzy, because your queen acceptance will go right down the drain.
That's great advice. And I think I found that out a little bit this year in a couple of the ways that I tried to introduce queens.
Well, the push-in cage is great if you don't have a lot of colonies. Bruce,
Yeah.
you use that, right? I know all of
I
you.
did. It honestly, the acceptance wasn't a whole lot better than typically. I think the biggest problem was that I needed to feed them. I think I really did, and I did not. So it was late July. It was just it's the worst possible time probably to do that without feeding them.
Yeah.
But then I made sure I fed them before this last round, and they did so much better. But yeah, I think the push-in cages are great, but I did some things wrong. I learned some lessons. So if I do it again, it'll be I'll just be a little more careful on some things that I do.